You have the little box thing here that says take 207. Okay, so today, when we build complicated systems, and those systems can be technical, they can be software, they can be business process, they could be political, they could be anything. When you build a complicated system, a lot of time is spent describing how the system should work. And the key to building a reliable system is understanding how the system might not work, and then what you're going to do about it. So this is Melinda. And the other day, yesterday, we were talking about opening a new line of business. And so Melinda was describing a business process. And what we want to do is we want to analyze that business process as an example. So you want to tell them a little bit about the business process?
Yeah, so my background is in planning in the apparel industry. And so one of the processes that we were looking at from a high level is adding an additional channel onto a currently single channel line of business. So for example, right now, the business I work for and work at is a direct to consumer only, and we're adding an Amazon channel. So we figured it would be a great idea to break it down and figure out where the failures could be and create an outline for the cross-functional team so everyone knows what the solutions are ahead of time to make things much more seamless.
Yeah, that planning ahead thing, that can pay off, right?
Sometimes.
We hope so. So that process, though, that I think you outlined, you told me it had how many steps, do you think?
Probably about 45 to 50 steps.
Yeah.
If you break it out by each cross-functional team.
And what they actually do, too, kind of like their subtasks. Okay, so we're not going to do that because that will be, actually, people who are in demand planning wish we would, because we would be saving them a bunch of time, right?
Oh, yeah.
But we're not here for that today.
And you get to listen to me talk for an hour and a half.
Yeah. So if you like this, tell us in the channel, and we will try and do some more detailed version of this for parts of it. Okay, so what we did was we decided, hey, we want to know what can go wrong. And we try to qualify that. In Six Sigma and some other places, they actually have more columns, but I want to do the simple column version here. So what we want to do for any given stage, and in some stages there could be multiple failure modes, we want to know what the fault is and how we would detect it. So sometimes you could have a fault and you can't detect it. An example would be, I expected something to happen this way. If it happens incorrectly, you might detect it. But if it never happens, you never know, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we want to detect it. We want to know how to remediate it. If this fault were to occur, how do we avoid it from ever occurring, or how do we fix it? And is it a manual process? And then how severe is this failure, and what is the likelihood of it? Because a catastrophic failure that is not going to happen in your lifetime is not worth worrying about, at least for this part. Whereas something that's super low severity but happens a lot, you might be like, well, I don't know. Okay, so why don't you describe a couple of these processes, and we'll try and bucket like maybe this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the most first and foremost step when opening an additional channel after you've already determined what that channel is going to be is determining what product makes the most sense for that channel. So that's step one, which is determining the assortment. And that has the main key around that is what, in terms of an assortment, is prints, pricing strategy, and the amount of products you want to have on your assortment.
We also talked about packaging size. Is that what you meant by
packaging?
Like what the unit size. So you see this, like if we were doing an Amazon thing, right? Like sometimes they won't sell you a single. I went to buy socks the other day, and I had to buy 3 pair because that was.
You bought it in singles?
You can't buy. I buy it in singles on their website, but I couldn't on Amazon.
Socks?
You're letting my this is like, yes, they're special socks. Okay, we won't, you know what? I shouldn't have brought it up. Okay, so what could go wrong with the assortment process? Like
Yes.
when you determine the assortment, what would be a failure mode in that process?
A failure mode would be picking a print that has not been approved by the factory.
Ooh, that would be bad, right? Like
Yes.
you get ready to put it up on Amazon, and it turns out they don't actually have it in the
Absolutely. Yep. Being like, oh, I want a Stars and Stripes print, but you haven't gotten it struck off with your factory, which is basically approval. And then you can't actually order that print.
Or they could drop it, like between.
Or it could be the wrong print.
Oh, the wrong.
And it could be printed incorrectly.
Oh, that'd be horrible. Okay, so there's a bunch of. Okay, so what we did is we identified a couple different failures that could occur in the assortment, right? Determining the assortment, and those all sound severe. Like those all sound like showstoppers.
Yeah.
They're not like random failures.
Yeah.
Okay, and then how would we detect those? Is there like a cheat sheet that you're supposed to go through whenever you do one of these? Do we rely on the super person who knows all the thing? Like, what's the right way to detect this, do you think?
Yeah, so in order to detect that failure, the best solution is having a
Like a checkbox? You have like a checklist to go over?
Yeah, is actually checking a document from the product development team, which has all of the prints that are approved and ready to go. But if your customer is a little bit different, then you have to start this process over.
There you go. Okay. And so the remediation, if you pick the wrong print, is either to drop it, or the wrong package is either to drop it or try and get it added to the list that's
for future
available.
development for the next season.
Because you wouldn't make it for this season because
Exactly.
the lead time's too long. Oh,
Yep.
we didn't
Your
talk
lead
about that.
times would be too long, and then you would be behind, and you would not be able to hit your high-level revenue goals.
There you go. So that would be a good reason to have a fault strategy already laid out, right? Because otherwise you're going to miss it for a whole season, and then the next season you hope you remember. Okay, so when we go from planning to operations, we decide, I don't know, I was going to make this up, but you're the one that knows this. So give me an example, what happens in the handoff to the green team?
Yeah, so step number 3 is creating products in the ERP. So obviously there needs to be some sort of handoff of what those products are if they do not already exist in your ERP system. So that handoff is basically a middleman between these two teams.
Now, we actually discussed this a little bit. We had the 2 boxes here, 1 and 3. And we had a debate whether the handoff itself is part of your business process, right?
Yeah.
And I think we came down that it is part of the business process, and it's a place that can break.
Yes, it is absolutely a place that can break. So the most important part within this handoff, or where something can fail, is that something isn't communicated correctly or received by the next team.
Yep.
So communicated by the prior team and received by the next team. So the failure would be something is not communicated to this team.
The order that never gets into the ERP system because they didn't.
And then the solve or remediation for that is having one mode of communication for designated for each step.
Oh, perfect. So a lot of places get confused when they're communicating between teams on how they should do that. Do I put it in a spreadsheet somewhere? Do I send it by email, which is what a lot of companies do? Do I have 2 systems hooked to each other where they do this?
Exactly. So one example of that would be linking your project management software to your Slack and/or communication channel to alert the other team when you have changed a status of an item.
So that's interesting. So this is like a kind of a modern way to do this, sort of, and I mean it when I say that. So Slack is an interesting intergroup communication. You could actually have a channel used for nothing but this communication for this handoff.
Yep, exactly.
And then you would have a record of all the communication that occurred that even new people could see.
Yep, and it can link to other softwares, for example, Monday, a project management software, and have it auto alert when something is updated.
Yep, and then if there's no action in a certain amount of time, you might. So in that case, it was the handoff we found a fault in, potential fault. The severity was critical because if the handoff is botched, nothing happens. The rarity, we don't know. We're hoping it's rare, but it could be common depending on the company. The detection was a little harder, I think. It feels like in a smaller company, it might be a human's got to check on the channel to see if anybody acknowledged it.
Yes.
Right? And the remediation is to have a single method for notifying from one team to another so there's no confusion. Okay.
Well, you would really detect it when you go to get to step 4.
Oh, 5, you mean?
Right? Or step 5, because you would go to write your purchase order and you wouldn't be able to pull in an item.
You'd already be behind at that point.
So you'd be behind, 2 steps behind.
Yeah, that was good. Okay, so we're at time. The goal here was to really talk about failure mode analysis. Why we want to do that, right? We want to make a process more reliable, and you want your team.
Or how to build a new process, and how to allow every single cross-functional member to understand their role within these processes.
In the new process that didn't exist before.
Yeah.
All right, so that's cool. We have a deeper version of this we're thinking of doing. If you want us to do that, just leave feedback. And thanks from Joe.
Thanks.
From Melinda.
Oh, from Melinda.
And have a great day. Bye.